G'day everyone, it's awesome to be here, and today we're having a conversation with Simon Crafar, who's a well-known figure in the world of motorcycle racing, particularly in the MotoGP paddock and World Superbike Championships. Now, before he was a commentator, he had a very successful career as a professional motorcycle racer, and later, obviously, as a commentator and also a coach. Now, Simon's early career began racing in the late 1980s in New Zealand, where he quickly made a name for himself in various national and international championships. His early years were marked by impressive performances in the British Superbike Championship and the World Superbike wildcard draws, where he had the opportunity which really paved his way for an entry into the world of racing. The 500cc Grand Prix was probably Simon's most notable achievement. And this came in 1998, where he rode for the Red Bull Yamaha team and secured his first Grand Prix victory at the British Grand Prix at Donington Park, which at the time was a significant accomplishment. It was a very competitive area, maybe one of the most competitive eras of the last 30-40 years. And he finished the season in 7th place overall and achieved 3 podium finishes, which really highlighted his skill and competitiveness in that top premier class. Before his Grand Prix career, he raced in World Superbike Championship, and he competed in that championship hard and rode for various teams, including Kawasaki, Ducati and Honda, and earned several podium finishes. He was known for an aggressive riding style and a determination that really made him a fan favorite and a respected competitor amongst all of his peers, which we're going to talk a little bit about today. Now, when his racing career ended, he entered into the world of commentary and coaching. And after retiring from professional racing, he transitioned also into a role as an Öhlins suspension technician, rider coach and commentator and analyst for MotoGP broadcasts. These days he's not doing too much coaching, but his deep knowledge of the sport, combined with his first-hand racing experience, has provided valuable insights for viewers of MotoGP's broadcasts. And his engaging commentary style and technical expertise have made him a respected voice in the MotoGP community and paddock. Now, in addition to his commentary, he has recorded numerous videos and written a book on what he calls Moto Voodoo, the art of riding. And this Moto Voodoo training program, which offers advanced riding techniques for coaching and riders looking to improve their skills, is still available today on DVD and videos on YouTube. This practical real-world experience and his ability to translate tough riding styles and techniques into a lingo that everyone can understand is one of his great skills, one of his great gifts. And, his perseverance and adaptability and passion for the sport from his early days in New Zealand to his success on the global stage is something that is respected and something that has really helped him transition to commentary. Because in commentary, he's one of the folks that's actually been out there on the bike. He's ridden in the GP class, the MotoGP class, and he's keen to share his knowledge with the next generation of riders. For me, Simon's legacy in motorcycle it's really multifaceted as a rider. As a racer, he remembered for his thrilling performances at the Grand Prix victories. I saw him win in New Zealand as a really young fella, and that was awesome. And as a communicator and coach, he's got a unique influence in the sport. He's respected by fans, riders, and aspiring riders alike. And his contributions to motorcycle racing extend way beyond the track, and in fact, way beyond motorcycles. He also has a massive passion for dogs and saving dogs and helping dogs and bringing dogs off the streets and into loving homes through his Riders for Dogs program. So the guy's got a big heart, he's a top bloke, and I'm really excited to chat to him. So let's head on over there. Well, good day, everyone. It's awesome to see you all again, and I am beyond excited for you all to meet Simon Crafar. Simon's a well-known figure in the world of motorcycle racing, particularly in World Superbike, MotoGP, and he's also a Kiwi. and has had a really varied, really successful career as a pro racer, and most recently as a commentator and a coach and a technician, amongst other things, for Olin's. So Simon, mate, awesome to meet you. Awesome to have another Kiwi on board.
Oh no, my pleasure. I've watched a couple of your interviews since Kirst, my wife, mentioned that you invited me to come on your show. So I watched a couple and really cool. Like you've got something in common with all of the journalists that I like, in that you love the sport, and whoever you're interviewing or whatever subject you're talking about, you have passion for, and it's about that rather than you. And excuse me for being straight up, but that's me. And I learned that after being a racer, because racers have quite a ego, that you have to get rid of that to be a good teacher. When I did that instruction, and also I think that comes into the journalist side as well. They're all the ones that I respect have that, meaning journalists have that in common. I wanted
No,
to give you
mate.
a big up. Good on you.
No, and that's awesome. I think it's also kind of a Kiwi thing to speak our minds. I've followed you for a long time, obviously, because there's not a lot of successful motorsports people that have come out of New Zealand. Although there are some very famous ones historically, which we'll get to later. But I remember watching you back in our local track in New Zealand. I actually did watch you race in the 250 TT series. Long time ago, which I think you won a few times, and then you went on and won a Malaysian title, and there's a bunch of stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just great. It's great to have you here. As a fellow Kiwi, what I'm really curious about, obviously, is how you got started in motorcycle racing in New Zealand. It's not known for producing lots of motorcycle races, and can you share some of your early experiences that sort of drew you to the sport?
Yeah, well, I knew about the sport because my uncle, mum's brother, younger brother, was a successful motocrosser. And so we went to watch him a few times. But I mean, he was more a hero, and I was like a toddler, running around, or like single figures, probably 5, 6, And so he was just a legend to me, And he put me on the tank a few times at the end of the race meeting and tore me up and down the field just so I could experience it. And that blew my mind. But it was too removed and too, it felt like impossible for me to do that, because I didn't even know anyone with a bike,
Mm.
My father was a blacksmith, still is. He's about to retire, believe it or not, 75. And a high level blacksmith, by the way, or racehorses and trotters, gets flown around now, fixes horses, that like expensive horses that have problems.
Mm.
But back then when I was a kid, he was shoeing the rural, the farmers. They only care if the shoe stays on, and you're shoeing them in the mud. And I was there holding them, looking at the farmer's motorbike. One of my best mates at school, at 10 years old, I went round to his farm, his father's farm, and he had older brothers that they'd taught him how to ride his father's TS 185 Suzuki. And he taught me. I begged him to, and he taught me one evening, and that was it. I honestly knew what I wanted to do. I know that I feel lucky about that. And I was like this to my father, pulling his shirt for 12 months before my father gave in, because he's horses and rugby, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
free. It's free because he's a blacksmith. He could get me the horses, shoe them, have place to put them. And I did have horses until then, and I just, so I'm really lucky. I got knocked out playing rugby, woke up in the back of dad's car, and he looked super worried, looking at
Mm.
me close. I just woke up to see his face, super worried, and I said, "Dad, I don't want to play rugby. I want to ride. I want to ride motorbikes." So he went, "Okay," and gave in. We went down that path. So I feel super lucky. I had a father that backed me in what I wanted.
Yeah, it's a great story about dads, especially as we ride and we have our own kids, and we want to set the right example, but we also don't want to be hypocrites, right? When it comes to our kids riding, which is definitely something I'd want to talk about later. And what's interesting hearing you talk is, and a lot of professionals I meet that have gotten to great levels in the sport, all knew very early and were all very competitive early. Would you consider yourself someone that just wanted to win all the time, was just like competitive from day one, or is that something you sort of discovered?
Sure, I was competitive, of course,
Yeah.
but I think I've kind of admitted to this to myself towards the end of my career. I realized that the ones that won world championships, that was their dream, to smash everybody. And I'll be honest, my dream always, I've loved the machinery. Like, I love motorcycles. And I looked at the magazines, and had the center page pulled out, which was of a factory machine, whether it was Freddie Spencer's or earlier motocross like Haken Kalquist or someone, Brad Lackey.
Yeah.
So I would have them on my wall. And my dream, honestly, was always to ride those factory machines against the best guys in the world. And Dad doesn't have to pay, That was it, really. That was the deep-rooted dream goal. And I'm so lucky to have made that happen. But I think, if I'm honest, I believe I would have got further if I had bigger ambitions, It was more, I was totally happy once I was there, you know what I mean? By riding those machinery. And I didn't really have the hunger to smash the opposition, I was quite friendly with them, and they all weren't friendly back. And I think there was something missing, that one more step from me, I believe.
But clearly, you've had some great moments in your career that have been pivotal to you, not only being a great coach and a technician, and definitely I can tell that in many ways you're quite professorial and quite academic around how you think about what goes into riding a motorcycle well, whether it be through your Moto Voodoo coaching, which I want to talk about, or just the way you talk about and make sense of all the craziness that goes into MotoGP bikes for the average listener that doesn't understand. My wife loves Formula One, but she's now all about MotoGP, and a lot of it is because she's learned so much listening to you. And but like, as you think about those key moments as your career grew, a guy raised in Pukekohe, New Zealand, a rock at the bottom of the South Pacific. Were there moments in your career that you feel were pivotal to however you determine success? Because we all determine it in different ways. But you had a victory. One of your big victories was at the British Grand Prix, right?
That
In
was
98.
the biggest one, for me.
That was your biggest one. Like, it's clearly one. But were there others that maybe people don't quite realize in the life of a racer that they don't see it, but were big pivotal moments for you?
Yeah, that's a really good point, and you're right. Success is measured. Sorry, that's one of our dogs.
You say hi if he wants.
Yeah, he's probably wants a chew or something. He's massive. If you get to see him, he's a Czech wolf dog, and literally Carpathian wolf mixed with German Shepherd. So, first of all, you mentioned the word academic or along those lines. I sure wasn't. I left school with nothing, and I'm talking before school C, we call it at home, doing school cert. Because 15, before the exams, I got offered to work like an apprenticeship as a motorcycle mechanic, and this shop would supply me motocross bikes, and that was my first dream come true. Dad, you don't have to pay for my bikes. Mum and Dad, just to give you an idea, they ran away from home when they realized they were pregnant with me. And because back then it was uncool, and so they grew up with nothing, did whatever they built. And I knew they really couldn't afford to back my racing for long. They did for 4 or 5 years. And so first opportunity out, I wanted, and I did this apprenticeship, and it didn't turn out great. I was too young, to leave home, go to another city, and I went off down the wrong path, and learned the hard way. But just to give you an idea, I have no academic. I have 0 papers, from schooling, but I absolutely love the sport, so I spent so much time trying to understand it and teach me how to be better. or learn how to be better, but also the mechanical side. I did my apprenticeship as a bike mechanic, and I understand I can build a bike, from ground up, and I understand the improvements, the changes, the mods, what they do. And I love to put it's just how my brain works. I love to put it in a simple way, because I think it should be that way, my favorite saying, for example, was a man obviously much cleverer than me, Albert Einstein, says, one of his sayings is, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand the subject well enough. And I fully believe in that. If you really understand the subject, you can put it a simple way, because it is relatively simple. You don't have to make all the magic around it and make it more complicated than it is. I'm sure there's some complicated subjects. We're getting off track, but I love the sport. I love the machinery. So I try to understand everything, and I love to share it, and that's another thing I learned on my way is the best crew chiefs, for example, the legend crew chief, I got to work with two of them that are super famous. Guy Coulon, 93, he looks kind of like a clown, sorry, Guy, but you do. I love Guy. He knows I love him.
I remember Guy, yeah.
And then he's still in the paddock with Tech 3. He's part of Tech 3. He's one of the 3 original partners. So then the year after, Merlin Plumley, who's an American who worked for Honda America, and so many legends came through Honda America onto World Championship through Merlin,
Yeah.
He was their crew chief. And the last one would have been Nicky Hayden, I reckon, at a guess. Merlin sadly died of cancer a long time ago now, but wonderful man. And I learned so much from these 2 crew chiefs, and I always was shocked how open they were with me. And Merlin, it was the one that explained it. 'Cause I said to him, again, I was in the workshop. He was doing something to an RC45 engine. We managed to get 5th in the championship. Him building the bikes, me riding them. They're private machines. We got 5th in the World Superbike Championship. And we're no way without him. No way. He was wonderful. And I learned so much from him. And I said to him one day, when I'd asked something about the engine, why are you doing that? And he put the tools down and explained the whole reason, thoroughly. And I was just shocked, because I'm used to growing up around people that hide, the knowledge.
Yeah.
And he knew exactly what I was asking. And he said, look, Simon, you'll find the people that really understand whatever subject it is, they are so busy focused on learning the new things. They're not worried about hiding what they've already learned, and they love and it's the people that they're hiding what little they know, and I've found that to be true in every, I want to say, trade or every profession that I've done, and I've done a few now. I found that to be true. The very best, they're happy to help and share in what they know,
But it sounds as though for you, there were like people that came into your life early that took an interest in you, and you had a learner's mindset to learn from them. And so you had a couple of people, and you mentioned Freddie Spencer as well. And he's a pretty interesting cat. I did his Yamaha Champs riding school in the US, which is something that he founded.
Was that in Las Vegas, wasn't it? Or
yeah, he founded it in Vegas. I live in Seattle. Our local track is the Ridge Motorsport Park, which isn't the most famous track in the US, but arguably one of the best. It's pretty incredible. When you come here, you're welcome to spend a night and take one of my bikes out there. We'll have some fun. I've got a few bikes in the garage.
There's something I didn't answer.
Yeah.
You said about the the big one was the British GP one for me.
Yes.
And everyone knows that, but it wasn't my favorite race, because I managed to run away. I was just running from Mick Doohan, who was awesome, and hunted everyone down, and I was sure he was going to hunt me down. I was just running for my life, trying to make the gap as big as possible early on, because I knew I had the speed to do that, but I knew he would come back, and he didn't. So that was, and it wasn't as, of course it was exciting, but it wasn't as exciting as Phillip Island that same year, which I love the circuit for starters. It's so fast that it makes motorcyclists' dreams come true. You know, everybody dreams about sliding at 200 kilometers an hour, right?
Yeah.
Front and rear.
Yeah.
First time I went to Phillip Island, it scared the pants off me. I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm good enough for this. Honestly, 89 on the Super Angel OW01 superbike, you know, my first year, it scared me because I hadn't had experience with fast circuits. New Zealand's all Nadgery stop start, you know, the odd one at Pukekohe. So basically, I started the race. I'd qualified well. Can't remember. I think it was front row though, maybe just off the front row. And mid race, I was seventh. And between mid race and the end of the race, I went from seventh, passing heroes of mine. I'm talking literally heroes of mine. They still are. Kaczynski, Biaggi, Checker, Kenny Jr., you know, Abe. The last two I got by. I was around some of them and then ran away, got past them and managed to get. The last two was Barros, who was third, and then Crivier, who was second. And I ran away from them and bridged the gap halfway to Mick. And so that race was so much more exciting, you know, because you're passing your heroes, you know, it's working. And those dreams are coming true. I'll never forget it. Going, you know, sliding at 200 kilometers an hour. It's like unbelievable. And because you know how close you are to getting very hurt, but you're confident to do it lap after lap. It's working, you know, it's just incredible feeling. Like I said, dreams come true. And the big one was standing on the podium after, because there was a cool track invasion there.
Yes,
and
I remember.
Massive sea of people. And I look down and see mum, dad, granddad, grandma, you know, uncles, aunties, sister. Wow, there's nothing better than that, you know. That was, so for me, that was a favorite one. Hey, before we jump in on this one, perfect timing, let's compare sizes for, you know, since we don't know each other. Hold your cup up.
Oh, yeah.
I was just seeing check that out.
Yeah, this is a Yank size.
Yeah. And I like that as well. A good one of those is great. But
sweet as. Oh, yeah. I actually have upstairs a fancy Marzocco espresso machine. But I can't use it at this time in the morning because I wake my son up, who's sleeping upstairs, and I'm grinding. So that's my excuse for the Yank cup. But you're right. You called me on that, Simon. That's a good
one. Now, to answer your other question is, and there's a lot of things I hope we touch on that are important to get from riding dirt bikes and
let's talk about
New Zealand Championship to get to World Championship. And a lot of pitfalls, and it really was because my dream was to ride World Championship, you know, ride the factory bikes against the best guys in the world on the best circuits. Because of that, I didn't get distracted by for example, the good jobs in national championship that I got offered. I would do them, but only as a stepping stone. And for example, one move I'm super proud of is, I had to I got to Malaysia. I should start out in New Zealand to Malaysia. I did 7 races in Japan. So I'll do this as quick as I can. But they're all the same. They're all the same ingredients. As I was working in a workshop, like I said, in New Zealand, with a sponsor to pay for my bikes, who was the bike shop. And I'm working in the shop, and it was a Honda shop in New Plymouth by now. And I just won the New Zealand Championship at 250 Brody. And I had two bikes, pickup truck, you know, to take my bikes around, paid for by, but I'm working through the winter, really looking forward to this, and I get a phone call, do you want to go to Suzuka 8-hour? Because I'd won the championship at home. There's a Japanese team looking for riders with talent from New Zealand and Aussie to bring them over there. And that was YSP Majiro, Super Angel, another name people know it as. McDoon was their first guy, Aaron Slight their second, then me and Stroudy and Scott Doohan was that year. And so he invited us over and invited me over. The others were already there or moved on. And I had to say no because the shop owner made me choose between one race, Suzuka 8-hour, that I'd been invited to, or go, stay with him and have a year of bikes, and you know what I mean? And it was really scary. He rang my dad. Dad's trying to convince me not to do it because he's saying it's mad going from 250 Prodi to superbike in Japan on slick tires, and you've never got no experience. You're going to hurt yourself. And so I almost said no. And then, to shorten it up, I ended up ringing and saying yes to them. I'll do it. And walked away from that job, took my toolbox on Monday and went to Japan, and it was the right thing. I learned the hard way. I had a lot of crashes. And that's what my Moto Voodoo book is about. The stuff I learned in that period. I had 7 high sides in 3.5 months, cried myself to sleep. With ankles,
Wow.
But that was one. It was not, chasing that. There's no point staying in New Zealand if you want to go World Championship, Then the second one I'm super proud of is before that, I went to Malaysia. Mike Webb, I was working for by then in a bike shop, motorcycle shop. He helped me write letters because he can write a letter. I couldn't. I left school too early.
Sure.
And at that stage anyway, he helped me write letters. He said, what do you want to say? And this is to Yamaha Malaysia. I just said, I just want a chance. One race. Give me somewhere to sleep. I'll bring my gear bag. One race, show you what I can do, and then we'll talk, And they went, I'd sent this to a lot of Yamaha because I knew the OW01 that I could turn up and ride it. I knew where to set it because I'd been riding one in Japan. And so they said yes, turned up there, turned into a year and a half, 18 months, the second half of that year. And the whole next year, won the championship for them. Awesome people, Hong Leong Yamaha. They looked after me, helped me do my apprenticeship on a superbike, properly learn how to ride it. Then I got an invite to go to the UK to do the last 2 races there. And I knew that was a chance. I had to go take the brain out at the last 2 races and do something so I could get a job in the UK for the following year. And it worked. I got the job. I got 4th in the first one, the Brands Power Bike, which is their last big event of the year, and destroyed the bike trying to go one better in the next one, but did enough to get offered the RC30 the following year with Honda UK. End of that year, which is what I want to tell you, was a real pivotal moment for me. I think end of '92. By then I'd learnt all the tracks and Honda. Bob McMillan. Neil Tuxworth sat me down. I was having a beer with Joey Dunlop because it was a Dunlop Honda event. Yeah. And Joey and I were the only ones there alone in suits, not very comfortable in suits. And we were in the corner having a pint talking about the best tracks and the best bikes. And that was a cool memory. I didn't realize how cool it was till later, But I got sat down and they said, here's the deal. And it was, 92 was the first time I got paid, and I didn't care. I just wanted more World Superbike races. That's what I pushed the amount of Superbike races, as a wild card. I pushed it from 1 to 3 and not the money. And then the second deal they offer me is 3 times the money, So it's getting paid proper. And I went, no, I'm not staying in National Championship. I'm going World Championship. And they went, have you got a ride? And I went, no. But I'm going World Championship. And they went, Simon, this is a good deal. And I went, I know, but I'm bored. And if I get bored, I'll drink and chase girls, instead of focusing on the, and how could they argue? They went, well, fair enough, And I had no job. I'm talking till April the following year. And then I get a call. Raymond Roche let me do 4 wildcards on his personal owned 888. He was the team manager for Foggy and Falapa. He did this for me. I stayed with him, traveled with him, and did 4 races on a kit 888. Managed to get 6th at Estoril. Was the best result on it. But all tracks I don't know because I'm just turning up to World Championship. Right. And I got offered a ride in 500s, but on a bike that was the worst. When I say worst, it was the oldest, lowest budget team, oldest machinery, 2 good mechanics, actually, good people, 1 woman and 1 guy. So super small. We had 2 sets of tires per race weekend.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
all the practice had to be done on old stuff from the weekend before, and then you have one for qualifying, and that does the warm up, and you have one for the race.
Wow, some
And
time management, man.
so what I'm saying is the excuse to probably go off track from what you wanted, but
No,
it
it's
was
okay.
don't get distracted off the path of your goal by a good deal, to stay in what you don't actually want to do. But it's a good, I think that's like I said, I'm super proud I didn't get distracted by that. And it, I went and did World Championship for nothing. Um, but I learned all the tracks. I learned a lot. Um, and that helps for later when I did get the proper ride, I'd already been to the tracks. You see what I mean? And
Totally.
um,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't have gotten noticed by the people if I hadn't been doing it.
It's interesting because in those days when you were studying a track and you're learning and you had this, you really wanted to compete on the world stage, you're saying no to offers, you're turning up at tracks. I'm a big believer in having a plan when you turn out to a track, even as a enthusiastic A group rider. I have a plan, and I ride it a lot of tracks in the US, and I get in my van and I drive down to Laguna Seca or whatever, some of the tracks. And I study the tracks on YouTube. Here are the great riders. Here's the turn point here. Here's where they're looking for the apex. I'm making notes. But in those days, you turn out to a track. Like, how did you study a track before riding it?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. The most I got was a walk around the night before. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
no, nothing. Because you're right. I didn't even have a phone or a computer
Yep.
so you're right. It was before all that. Well, not before phones, but before they were smart. You could
Yeah.
watch things on there. Yeah. I mean, it was a different time, it really
Mm.
was. And I think a lot of people, if they look at their careers, will agree on those early years when you're really finally doing what you want to do. You've got no money. I was
Yeah.
sleeping in team trucks, bumming lifts with
Yeah.
the boot people, that sponsored me for boots. I would stay with them for a week near Imola, and then catch a ride to the next race. And I was doing things like this, whatever it took, until Tech 3 took me on, which gave me a motorhome. They paid for the fuel, and I could call Kirsten and say, come on over. But that period with her, same. It's some of our best memories,
How did you
having
meet?
the oh, that's a good one. uh, the very last race I did in New Zealand,
Yeah.
I convinced Yamaha Malaysia to loan me the bike. It was already painted up with Mulberry Yamaha for
Oh,
Yamaha
yeah.
Malaysia race,
I
and
remember.
they had an international race. It's called Pan Pacific Superbike Championship. So all the Aussies came, and Asian different riders from that region came. But you're talking Robbie Phillips, Malcolm Campbell, super fast boys. Aaron Slight, who was riding an Aussie by then. Yeah, and the Kiwi boys, which included me. I wanted to do it. I convinced them to loan me the bike, but I thought how I pay for it to get over there and run it. I went to Philip Morris in New Zealand, which is Marlboro cigarettes,
Yeah.
and said, would you pay the freight? We're already kitted up. We've already got the equipment to compete. It's just freight cost and some tires or something like that. They went,
Mm.
hell yeah, super deal. Little did I know, they thought, let's do some extra promotion, and sent two Brolly girls.
Ah.
And my teammate, who I was looking after, I put the deal together for him as well. That was the deal. They said, take your teammate, young Chinese Malaysian guy who's still a good buddy of mine. He came as well. And the girl that was his brolly girl, I said, please, can we swap? I've fallen in love with yours. So yeah, that was
Oh, mate, that's awesome.
1991.
That's
We're still
awesome.
together.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, and I've enjoyed corresponding with her because I reached out to you. It was kind of a total, you know,
Blind. Yeah, yeah.
I was so great she responded. Now you talked about the Marlboro Yamaha. Interesting side note. So a couple of years ago, I rode Ducati ST3S across Europe. Sweet. Touring bike, sport,
Ducati, what, sorry?
ST3S sport touring bike. Had
Okay.
yep. And this is before the multi-stratas and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then I went back and I did it again on a multi-strata, and I got to visit Pesaro, town of Pesaro in Italy. and I got to visit Mr. Morbidelli.
Really? Very
And
cool.
if you've heard, and so he had the largest private motorcycle collection in the world, second largest to Barber. And
I
in
had
that,
no idea.
yeah, yeah. And so Pesaro is where Laverda and
Yep.
Montebanelli, and it's just very close to where Rossi lives. And anyway, in there, he had a Marlboro Yamaha. And every single bike he built himself from scratch. I mean, I have to send you pictures, incredible. But he said, "Oh, yeah, Brian Crosby's bike,
Graham.
Graham Crosby's bike." He said, "This is Graham Crosby's bike." I'm like, "Yeah, the Kiwi that owns a shop in Auckland." You know, I knew that he had raced, but I think I think pretty sure it was a Yamaha, and it had
Yeah,
the
he was
Marlboro on it.
teammates with Valentino's dad,
Oh yeah,
Graciano, because the first time I met Valentino and Graciano's dad, I didn't know who Valentino was. His dad came up to me and we were at my boot sponsor's house. You know, they had a party right before
oh yeah.
Imola GP, was it? Yeah. Or maybe it was Mugello. Yeah, anyway, he came up to me and went, "Hi, Simon, I'm Graciano. This is my son." Oh, no, he actually said, "Do you know Graham Crosby?" I went, "Yeah, I know Graham. Owns a motorcycle shop in New Zealand." He said, "He was my teammate. He's crazy." And he went into a bunch of stories about Graham, and which was brilliant. And at the end of it, he went, "Oh, this is my son, Valentino. He's just won the scooter championship in Italy."
Oh mate, that's
And
awesome.
Valentino went, "Ciao, in English, do you have any stickers?" And I
Did he
went,
have the
"Yeah,
big smile that he has now? That he's like,
yeah, yeah,
wow,
yeah."
like so cool. And so Pesaro is like on the Adriatic coast. It's got an amazing history. Before the Japanese took over the motorcycling world, a lot of the great bikes were designed there, and so I'll send you some history on that. And
Cool.
so you're being super humble about the things you've achieved and the people that have helped you along the way, and I love that. And I think that's what makes you very real. Um, I want to sort of stay on the writing front. Now, you know, you saw the interview I did of Kayla Yakov, who's
I did.
just a young rising star here in the US. And I've got a lot of she's incredible. And one of the questions I asked her is like, you know, as you think about, you know, differentiating sort of a track day rider, you know, a high level track day rider, you know, that is doing good times but isn't racing. But from your experience, when you think about sort of fast track day riders, you know, what are the sort of mindsets or skills you've learned through your company and through coaching, necessary to make the leap from track days to maybe just doing club racing or competitive racing? Because I see a lot of track day riders who are really fast, but we always say like, what is it? How do you make that transition? And what is it really a big transition? And what are the mindset changes?
You know, when you do go racing, I mean, because at the end, track days, everyone works and we have to stay safe. You know,
Mhm.
you have to, and that's what my books and videos and stuff are on, is
Put a
trying to
link
go
up.
as fast as possible without crashing. And where's all the time to steal without crashing? Because we've got to go to work. We can't afford to crash. I don't want people can't afford to fix their bike, for example. They can't afford to have time off work. So then you get someone that is going that fast. And especially when I was in my 40s, I still really enjoyed that. You know, I could have a client that you could ride that hard with, and you just use the things you've learned to get that little bit more because he's really fast. You know what I'm saying? But
Mm.
and then you have to dig to a level you don't normally do, and then show them where it was. You know, you can steal a little bit here and a little bit there, but the big thing is the difference between, to me, the clear big thing is you got to be prepared to smash everything up.
Gosh.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
because you're standing right on the edge then. You know, and
yeah.
you're going to step over it a few times, looking in the wrong area to win some time. And um, that's the thing about racing, you know, it's not track days anymore, unless it's quite low level racing.
Yeah.
You've got to be prepared to to hurt yourself and smash your machinery up, you know. And but that I think only do that after you've got the time from everywhere else. You see what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
Then
totally.
the next step is risking it, you know, and looking for the time. And it's only little pieces here and there, you know. And it's when you're using the edge grip, you know, and I try and tell people to stay away from that until they've got it in all the safe areas. But the thing is, the type of person that makes it is there's varying types. There's the absolute naturals, that just understand so quickly where the grip is. It's amazing. And then there's the workers that I want to give you one example that proved to me that it is a learned sport. Is everyone will know who Sete Gibernau is. Yep. But when he first turned up, he was pretty shit, I would say it to his face. He was pretty average, and I came from New Zealand, and you don't get second chances, You've got to do something straight away, reasonable to get every opportunity you get. You've got to make something of to get a little bit further up the ladder or keep the one you've got, And Sete turned up and he didn't do that. So I thought, he'll be gone next year, but he wasn't. I didn't realize he was like relative of the Bultaco family, grandson. And so had the connections and to get another chance. And you know what? I thought he was shit. And he turned out really good, And it shows that there is two ways of getting there. You know what I mean? You can learn it. And I think I was in between, probably was similar to him. But there's no way you get the opportunities, unless you are. So there's a lot of people that probably slip through the net that don't get the opportunities. They're just going to take a little bit longer to learn it. And once they do, like Sete, But
I've been a junkie watching your motor videos, by the way, over the years. I've learned a lot from you. You sound a lot like what you talk about in your motor video training. So, but carry on. So that the learning is something. Yeah.
The main point I wanted to put across is about races is I think it's the same with all sports people. There's a certain level of natural ability you need to, if you're going to be a professional anyway. And then the rest is how much the work ethic, how much you have, how much you're willing to work, to learn, to push yourself to get better. And every rider is a different mixtures of this. And it's why Mick Doohan always springs to mind, because the level of natural ability was above average, like he was bloody good the first time he got on superbikes, the first time he really good, but not the same level as, like, to me, Kaczynski, probably Biaggi, those freaks when it comes to natural ability, unbelievable. But his work ethic, so he had more than the average amount of natural ability, but his work ethic was bigger than I've ever seen. Like, he would do whatever it took to win, he pushed himself so hard. Like, he's the only one that gets straight off long haul flights and go running, and I don't always think it was good for him physically. I think he battered himself, but he told me, I was his training partner for 3 years. He told me he wants to line up on the grid knowing that he deserves it more than all the others. What
does it mean to be? What's a training partner? Sorry, just help me. So you were like
physical cycling, gym.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So Mick is, when you talk about natural abilities, like Mick and I think Fogarty also to some degree, you watch them and they're. I mean, and the reason I've done a lot of different schools, Keith's, I've done Yamaha Champ School. I've looked at all of your online videos. Is that I feel like I get a piece of it from everything.
It's good.
And so your learner's mindset, like I get on the track every year, even though I'm making progress, and I'm shit scared the first time I get on the bike for the year. I'm like, oh, am I going to remember anything? And I have realized that you have to keep training to keep learning. But so Doohan though and Fogarty, if I'm right, they used to ride kind of crossed up. It looked like they weren't, like they would ride. It was weird watching them ride now because we're all taught like vision is everything, and lock on. And I remember the first time I dragged my knee, I thought there was something wrong. It's like, oh, fuck, what's wrong? And I'm actually riding properly because I'm not trying to drag my knee anymore. It just happens. And so those guys, you said they were naturals, but they're also rode in was it just the time, or they were so good that it didn't matter if they kind of looked crossed up and they were still winning? Like,
I think just off the top of my head, I think that back then, because there's no electronic stuff, that you could find different ways to do stuff and make it happen, where now I think it's so, everything's squeezed out so much of the package. You have to do everything, well, not everything, but most things so close to engineering wise correct, but they even know the angles to get the best drive to, you know what I mean? You've got to slow it down here a little bit more to get the angle to get that. They can actually tell you the numbers now. We didn't have the numbers. We had to feel and so there was more people getting it wrong. And I think someone like Mick could squeeze more out of just whatever he had, that's another thing I want to touch on actually, is people say the different riders in the different eras who was the greatest. And my belief is that a successful rider is someone who can adapt and get the best out of what he has or she has now. And those same riders would succeed no matter where you drop them in, no matter what era you drop them in, because I genuinely believe that. It's not because it's just their mentality. They, like I said about Mick, he would, whatever it took to win. If you dropped him in now, he would win again. He'd fight for the win again. Doesn't matter if the bike was easier or harder or so I don't think you can. It's those same people, and I would say there's more that would succeed in going fast now because the bikes are more user friendly. It's very physical now, but I think there's less chance of getting smashed up in your first year. Just to summarize, I think the champions of every era, doesn't matter if decade, would succeed in another era because it's the mindset.
Yeah, shit, man. God, I wish we had more time now because there are so many elements that are learned, right? And what I found with you is that in your videos, you really talk like you're a professor, even though we talked about your super humble beginnings. Like you're one of these guys that has just got this encyclopedia of learning. And even on MotoGP, you sneak around the paddocks and you come back, oh, I saw this new thing here, or I saw that there, and oh, that's why that corner's like your Moto Voodoo work feels very it feels very academic, even though it's not. You know what I mean? Like the way you talk. So tell me a bit about Moto Voodoo and how
if I'm straight up, I believe everything is relatively straightforward. Like I think people watching now would have gathered that by now. And sure, it doesn't mean it's easy, and it's easy to feel or understand, but it is straightforward. It's not rocket science. But I've actually stopped instructing. I couldn't cope. I did 4 years of both jobs when I got the commentary work. Because I didn't want to let my company go, and I didn't know how long they were going to keep me in commentary work. So I did both, but it burned me out. Can I tell you something that is still out there? Some people we know in the UK have done a really good job of doing the digital book. So it's a Moto Voodoo digital book. And it's online for sale. It's not expensive, and it has it all there and all the photos and that, but it has all the links to the videos that you've just read about. So you can read about it, go, okay, see the bit, and then click on it and go to the. So I hope that thing helps another generation of riders,
I get sent videos to your links to your videos quite a bit, actually. Hey, have you seen this video? I suppose outside of Moto Voodoo, the favorite ones are you just screaming down these GP tracks on MotoGP bikes you've done, which has been listening to you scream when you're riding on those bikes is awesome. There's so much to talk about. Because I want to talk a little bit about like the technology in the sport, because obviously the technology has changed dramatically. And I'm really confused because MotoGP has always been, hey, this is like prototype stuff. Some of it might make it into street bikes one day. Some of it may not. Whereas, we will super bike stock, stock bikes. It's kind of like a street bike, but not, And now with MotoGP coming down in power and it was all getting squeezed together, like, what are your thoughts on? It's a big question, but what are your thoughts on?
It's what I'm used to.
Yeah, the classes are changing now, Simon. And so, It's interesting to watch. There's obviously a difference between MotoGP and World Superbike, but they're all talented riders. Um, what do you think is ride height and all these things? When you think about the MotoGP class coming down in CC and getting, how are you guys? How's the industry positioning the two class? It's World Superbike, Super Sport, MotoGP. They're all kind of, to the average punter, they all look the same. So
So
yeah.
I'm glad you asked that one, because it's come up a lot, and I see it a lot on social media at the moment. That 850, they're making the bike slow, and the thing is, the reason I'm happy you brought it up is my response was the same when I first heard it. I actually said bullshit to my colleague. They're not going to make that. They're not going to make that same mistake again. They've already done 800s. That was a mistake. Then, like I do, Doug spoke to engineers and spoke to the people that put the ideas out there, and I feel the opposite now that I've done my homework. They do know what they're doing. So when they did the 800s last time, they didn't restrict bore size. So the manufacturers went big bore, real short stroke, and they're like an F1 style engine, real peaky. But on a motorcycle, that doesn't work. It gives you the most power, but you need a real good electronic package to help the thing work, because it's not user friendly. It's not torquey and smooth, and like the rider hasn't got a good throttle connection. They're quite shit, and the corner speed went through the roof, so they actually were faster through the turns, so makes the walls closer, which they wanted to get away from. So their aim with this was to make the bikes accelerate less and have a less top speed, because then the walls aren't too close. Because right now, the big problem is the bikes are going faster and faster and faster over the last years, that accelerating faster and faster. So you're not just talking top speed, talking second, third gear before they brake in the next corner. They're going so much faster that the wall, when they crash, the bike goes up the wall, up the air fence, and they're going, we've got to move that wall back. And the tracks have done that over the last decade. Now they're saying, no, it costs us millions. We've moved them far enough. We're not going to move them again, And so the championship has to go, right, we can't come back here, or we can slow our bikes down a bit, which is not a stupid thing. I mean, the bikes they're already slowed down to what, if you left it open, to what it would be, So we're beyond, we're beyond. Look, to give you an idea, why 850 isn't a worry is I spoke to the cleverest engineers, from the manufacturers, and they're telling me that the MotoGP bike has 300 plus horsepower, crazy amount of torque, and so much so that we cannot de-restrict the bike. We restrict it. We restrict the torque, restrict the horsepower until fourth gear, because it will either spin up, or if it's got lots of grip, the track and tire, it will wheelie. So the power is cut so it doesn't spin up or wheelie all the way to fourth gear. So I'm saying, I said to the guys, so you're talking, he said, before I asked him this question, he said, the one I'm thinking about now, said the 850 will just be restricted less until fourth gear. It's not going to be slower. It's just going to be restricted less, because it'll still have crazy amount of horsepower. They're saying 30 horsepower less an 850 will have than 1,000. But say they're over 300, and you see what I'm saying. So
totally.
Don't worry, people. They're not going to be slow. They're going to be a little bit lighter, because they're allowed 4 kilos less minimum weight, because the engines, if you take off 6 mil per cylinder, it's 24 mil, that the bike can be narrower, and less,
makes sense.
less. So they said, okay, it will work out smaller. Let's make it a bit lighter just to work in. So where save the big difference till last. The aero, they've kind of tried to restrict that again, 10% roughly, So instead of 600 wide, they have a square jig that goes over the bike, has to pass over the bike. and they're just making that 50 mil smaller. It was 600, now it's going to be 550. So the bike will be a little bit narrower, a little bit less effect, also for the person following. And then on top of that, it can't protrude in front of the axle. Now it's allowed 150. It can be 100. So the wing in the front of the bike that pokes out has to be pulled back towards the rider. I said, yeah, but can't you move the whole lot back, closer to the rider? Anyway, yeah, but then you have to move the rider, and that changes everything, And right now, if we don't move the rider, things will hit his face, and so it's more complicated than that. The wing will be smaller, have less effect. The belly pan, they haven't changed. It's still allowed 600 wide. The tail unit, instead of being free now, that Stegosaurus wing sticking up behind the rider, instead of being free, meaning you can update it as much as you want, you only get one update per season. Homologate the first one, you're allowed one upgrade during the season. So just like the rest of the aero. And it can't be 1250 high from the ground. It has to be 1150. So 10 centimeters down, that's a lot. 100 mil down is a big restriction. So they've tried to let the aero have less effect, Just to repeat, the belly pan's the same because the ground effects, all the manufacturers wanted to keep that. They're saying it's a way they're working, and the bike's turning better in the corner, so they're allowing them to keep 600 wide there, not narrow. The big difference, they're going to have GPS as well, by the way. They have GPS now, but it's not accurate enough to use for data to know what the rider's doing, what lines and stuff. This one will be, and it will be available to the teams after the session's finished, so everyone can see what everyone else is doing.
Yeah,
everyone. It's available to the manufacturers, meaning all the manufacturers.
You're right, they can ship the data, right?
Share that info. But live, it is to race control.
Got it.
And what they're saying, the manufacturers are telling me they believe race control want it to help with, to know what riders have done if there's an accident, or maybe goes to court about something he's done, you know what I mean? Meaning protests and stuff, to understand what if somebody's done something different than he usually does, it's that accurate. And also to know for safety, for flags, red flag. Got to stop him before he gets to that accident, blah, blah, because it comes up on their dashes. Anyway, safety-wise, basically. The big change in the 27 regulations to me, is the ride height devices, getting rid of them. Because that does allow the bike to accelerate harder. And the thing that I like about getting rid of it is people will say, why you want to make them slower? People don't notice how much faster the bike went when visually, when we brought them, when MotoGP brought the ride height devices, you're like, so what? It just looks cool that it drops before it takes off. But the thing is, it will slow that second and third gear acceleration from corners before the next corner. So less chance of it going up the wall, That's where they make the difference is the first, second, third gear corners acceleration. And the thing that I love is it puts it back in the rider's hands more, because right now, off the start, they're allowed to use both devices, the start front one, like the whole shot device, and the rear. The bike is so low, and with the launch control, with the clutches that they're improving with both devices, riders can pretty much nail the start within a, bang, bang every time. Everyone gets a good start and arrives at the same point at the same time, going faster than they. And that's the crashes in the first two corners. It's the crashes, And if you take those devices away, they're going to arrive slower because the bike's going to wheelie more. But the thing I love is we are going to see the rider working harder, meaning it's going to be like the old days, like he's trying to get his head over the front and trying to stop the wheelie, doing everything possible. We're going to have those cool shots again where he's battling the machine, and they're going to go all the way to the first corner with the front wheel off the ground. They during the lap, You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Hey, here's
Yeah.
an example. Here's an example. Second gear corners, like last turn at Jerez,
Mm,
or last turn anywhere. You see them come onto the straight.
mm.
Remember how the bikes would stay leaned over and swerve back across the track and then back up
Yep.
again? How a
Yep.
big S like that. And the small
Yes.
classes still do it, but the big bikes less. It's because when you lean at the right angle, I was mentioned that before, there's an optimal angle to have the machine that goes forward because you have good grip because you're up off the edge, but it's low enough, it's leaned over enough that the engine is low, so it
Mm,
wheelies less. And that's
mm,
the angle they try and get it, and they try to keep it in there as long as possible and end up swerving across the circuit
yeah.
trying to keep it in that anti-wheelie so they can keep the power on. Because if they lift the bike up, it wheelies, and then you have to shut the throttle, or the machine does it electronically.
Ah,
So they're trying to find that angle, and that will come back. All that
yeah.
fighting, and
Yeah, I feel
instead
like
of
I'm getting a
now,
sneak preview into
it's
Simon Crafer new season coming up because this is like awesome to hear. Yeah,
because
cool.
right now they hit the
Yeah,
button, the thing drops.
yeah,
They don't
yeah,
have to lean it over, and they just
yeah.
go
Just
bah off the
just
corner.
on
It
rails, right?
accelerates. But
Yeah,
also, I didn't know this. Mike Webb, the race director, told me that because he goes to the safety commission meetings and the riders complain that the curbs aren't long enough. Okay.
wow.
It's because the bike's not leaned over anymore because they don't have to use that anti-wheelie. So they stand the bike up on the fat part of the tire, drop the bike, and then go, brah, and then they're running out of track. They run off the track,
Yeah,
because the
yeah,
bike stood up. But so that's going to fix a whole lot of problems. But the big one for us is we're not going to notice that they're accelerating slower. We're going to notice that the rider's fighting it, which I want to see because the
yeah,
best rider does the best job at that. So he'll arrive at the first corner ahead of the others that made a mistake. There'll be more staggered, less chance of everyone going, pile ups first turns. But during the lap, the person who works the most gets less wheelie, and
yeah,
figures it out and goes faster. And we can continue going to the old school circuits we love,
yeah.
because they
This is a
won't
great
go.
clinic. Oh man,
Yeah.
so many. God, we could talk for hours. I just finished building a V2 Panigale. It's fully track prepped. And thing I've learned, and you're talking about, speed out of a corner, is that the roll on has to be so much more precise versus the little bike. When I'm coming out of the corner and I can see the exit, it's right on the throttle because a lot of my coaches are like, Angus, you're not getting on the throttle fast enough. You get, well, so what I learned the most is trail braking for direction is amazing once you get it. But then like the roll on, I mean, Ducati is, you've got to respect it. If you roll on too quickly, you're freaking wheeling. And so I suppose there's some correlation to MotoGP too, right? In terms of the amount of acceleration, the amount of torque that these bikes have out of, coming out of the corner has become untenable in the modern age of riding. And so we're trying to control that a bit.
Yeah. 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 I
Yep.
mean, people say, it's the ultimate, which they should let him go, but they haven't let him go for a long time. And it's
Yeah.
way past they're too fast. Like I was saying, like if they let them go completely, didn't restrict bore size and that'd be more horrible to ride. That's the other thing
Yeah.
about the 850. They're going to be nice and talky and rider friendly, good throttle connection, because
Yeah.
the engineer I spoke to who, builds the engine said 75, they've restricted us slightly more than they have with 1,000 at 81. So it's going to be basically it's forcing them to go longer stroke and they can't get the RPM then, which they means they can't get the peak power, but it's rider friendly, which is you need less electronics interfering. So anyway, yeah, we're well past the point where we can let them go and let the engineers have whatever they want because the bikes are too fast.
Oh, this is so meaty, man. So one of the things you learn about me is that I'm totally ADHD. It's part of who I am.
Same.
Yeah, all over the place. So one of the things I was thinking is like because you're a professional, you're an ex-pro racer, you clearly have a level of respect from the riders that maybe not every commentator has, right? I mean, they let you ride their bikes for goodness sakes. It's pretty cool. Like, so you rock on down there, you're cruising along and chatting to people. They know you're an ex-pro racer. Do you feel like that's given you a connection to the riders and the community that that maybe others don't have? I mean, I love the fact that you don't name drop and talk about how great you are, but I'm sure you have lots of mates that you can hang out with, and it's all cool, and they're all probably household names. Like, what has it given you as an ex-racer doing what you do now? Is it, yeah,
You mentioned before, and I didn't answer it, about the transition from
yeah,
my other careers, so I raced for the biggest period, then Olin's technician after. Loved that, actually. It was easy to go from one person in that huddle, meaning a
yeah,
rider, moving around, and I was a suspension technician in that huddle with the tire technician, with the crew chief, with the electronics guy, that same
yeah,
huddle. I wasn't intimidated by it, at least. And that helped. I loved the job, but it was right when babies turned up, and it's the only
mm,
reason I stopped doing that. Otherwise, I would have continued the Olin's thing more. Also, awesome company to work for. They're Scandinavian and treat their
yeah,
staff really well. And the boss of the race department, Mats Larsen, I love him. He's super clever engineering wise, but he's also a real human. So it was a wonderful experience working for them, and I learned lots.
mm,
Then um, so basically I started the school, and that taught me a heap, because it taught me how to put into words what I was
mm,
doing on the bike. And it took a long time, I reckon a couple of years of teaching before you get a good enough repertoire, is it, of how
mm,
to explain things, what you're doing on the bike. So I had to learn how to explain. I mean, for example, people would ask, I'd say, don't do that, man, that's dangerous, Le Mans chicane. The guy was going to crash, and he goes, well, what do you do? And I went, can you just give me a session out there and I'll figure
yeah,
out what it is that I'm doing different to you? And it was a couple of years of that. And I was spending 100 days on track a year to learn. The transition from that to commentary was the hardest, because it is not the same trade. I'm not a natural speaker. I couldn't read a book in front of the class, like there's no way
sure,
I would want to. Um, but it's kind of different when you understand the subject so well. And that was what motivated me to want to do it, um, and wanting to learn more. I love learning whatever they're doing. And you're right, the connections, like the team managers, I do have respect from a couple because I used to race them. And then I've earned the respect from the others over the years, So now I get told stuff that they shouldn't tell me, but at least I can guess what's going
yeah,
on.
yeah,
And they know I'm not going to burn them and say they said that, or but learning how to put it across and learning how to have kind of two brains, two things,
mm,
the thing you're talking about and get the other one ready. I didn't know how to do that. I was a disaster. And
mm,
I was shit at it to start with, I happily admit that. But it's like learning a new trade. I had
yeah,
no training. Donna stuck me out there with, they gave me the overline, which is like a pack with all these buttons and channels and aerials and a
yeah,
microphone
oh
and
yeah.
a headset. And I was nervous going for my first session. I went, have you got any advice for me? And he went, I'm just the sound man. I'm
Just,
like, so apart from times to turn up, I didn't get any advice or instructions, and it was hard. I got burned on social media. I had to turn that off. It was not a nice experience. But it was 2 years of learning. I think, like any trade that you learn,
mm,
any profession, 2 years of learning and making mistakes. And then the third year, I thought, hey, I've got this. I started to enjoy it. And I'd made all the mistakes, learn how to avoid them. And which is no different than being a mechanic,
sure,
Um, and then the next three, the third, fourth, fifth, even sixth, I really enjoyed, now I'm starting to get bored,
oh,
because
you are,
yeah, I'm not learning enough. I'm learning about but so I'm asking if we can mix it up, like as in do some different stuff, because
yeah,
if I just I've done how many years of the same thing, and so I'm not bored of learning what's in pit lane, but being in pit lane commentating, it's so hard from there, because the
yeah,
timing's never
yeah,
right and the bikes come past, and it's much better in the box. And so,
yeah.
but I don't want to do the races. They've got another skill, that
Yeah, sure, sure. But I mean, it doesn't come
maybe
across
in the
as
box, for
typical.
example,
I
I'm in
mean,
the box in the box with the commentators. So during the race, I could go, hey, this is happening, I think, and actually explain what I think's happening and what I'm seeing, which you can't do from pit lane. It's too hard. So yeah, anyway, time to mix
I've
it
seen
up.
that. Well, I think we've all seen that relationship really grow though with the commentators. Like it feels like you're really in sync, even though it's really hard. Like, and it's amazing, you know, the people I talk to now here, you know, the track days, I do a lot of track days, and we were talking about people, and everyone loves your commentary. So keep at it, man. Even though you're bored, find
Thank
something,
you, mate.
you know, people love it. And, you know,
Basically, I like to have a challenge. That's it, you know, so
yeah.
I want another challenge, another thing to learn and get better at. That's basically it.
What do you think it is about Kiwis in motorsport? Because I know it's been a while since we've produced names like McLaren, but Scott Dixon still, you know, the best, the most winningest IndyCar champion in the history of the sport, Kiwi. I remember watching him on TV in New Zealand in the 90s, and his dad had mortgaged his house to send him to New Zealand, to the US, sorry. I remember watching that story. I think Paul Holmes or someone had it on. And anyway, what is it about Kiwis like you that, you know, do you think there's something there, or do you think it's just luck, or what is it?
Well, when it comes to the mechanical side, I know we have something, because at least my generation and before me, we grew up with pretty much nothing.
Yep.
And you had machinery, you had to fix it, you know, because New Zealand's so remote that you learn how to make do. You learn, I think there's a real generation of that. People learn how to make things work or repair things without the proper parts, because you've got no choice. You got to wait months for it to turn up, or let's make it, you know. So there's that for sure. I'll give you that. I've noticed some countries grow up soft, because it's like where I am here in Andorra.
Everywhere.
Well, they grow up soft because they don't, because they have everything they need, you know. And when you have everything you need, I think it takes away some of your hunger, you know. And you'll see that a lot of there's two examples right now. The best Spanish kids come through. I mean, Jorge Martin, the new one, and Thurman Aldiger, who's going to be the new kid turning up. They both grew up hard, you know. And they just grew up. Their parents backed them. They didn't have money, but they had pocket bikes riding. I saw them when I was teaching. When I started out, they were riding every Wednesday night at Cartagena on their mini bikes, you know, around
Pedro Acosta as well.
Yeah, sorry, Pedro Acosta. Exactly. Pedro was in there. How could I forget him? Those kids grew up not wealthy, but with a real hunger, with a real passion. So there's that, but it doesn't matter where you come from. It's the same thing. It's just harder in the Anglo-Saxon countries because we have the litigation problem, which stops the kids riding on the track.
Do you ride on the street?
Oh, not really. Not really. I don't really enjoy it. And I haven't, my whole race career, I didn't ride on the street. And after, I've got a bike. I have. And, we've got 4 bikes in the family, you know, between my son, wife, me. We've got 4 bikes. But
and the dogs.
Mate, much more than going to the technical check each year.
Yeah, man.
I don't do much more. Like, I don't know. I think I've, you know what? I'm kind of over riding bikes. I know that's really bad.
No.
I'm not over the passion of the race bikes, but I'm over the riding bikes, especially on the street and on the track. But I think I've just OD'd from doing all the 100 days a year instructing. Man. And one more thing, people say, you know, like, look at this. It's the new blah, 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 whatever it is, wings all over it, production bike. Once you've ridden Pecco's championship winning bike with the real electronics and the real tires on it and the carbon brakes, I got 6 laps in Mazda.
I saw that.
I mean, dude, nothing else is exciting, you know.
I loved watching you on that. That was so much fun. You were screaming it off. It's weird because I go back and forth. I'm a serial motorcycle person, and I say, I'm not going to ride on the street anymore. It's too dangerous. It's boring. And I've got a son, and then I get collecting more bikes over here, and it's in my garage over here. I'm like, fuck, and they sit there doing nothing.
But you love them, same as me. I
love going out and polishing them and looking at them. You know, it's awesome to meet another Kiwi, and it was a total shot in the dark sending you the note because I'm a big fan of your career and your intelligence and approach to the sport that we love. And
Thank
but I
you,
know
buddy.
that you have passions for other things outside of motorcycling, and I thought it would be good to close on that because I've
Thank you.
seen you talk a lot about your love for dogs and your love for what their place in the world. So
Well,
tell me a little bit about that. What's going on there?
yeah. So what happened? I've been worried about or wanting to do something for the dogs. I mean, certain countries don't look after them, and you see maltreated dogs, animals in many countries, but there's a few Southern Europe in general that it's not good enough.
Mm,
It's horrific, and I've been wanting to do something, and originally you start out going, "Oh, what can I do to help the dogs?" But then with your workload, and all your responsibilities, you can only do so much, which is not very much. But I was worried about this for a couple of years and feeling guilty that I hadn't done anything
mm,
because I had two jobs. But then I gave away the instruction on track, which I told you I burned out and went, and that gave me the winter with my brain free. And then one day I walked into my workshop and went, looking at all my leathers from my career that I've kept and all my helmets and I went, I love dogs more than I love that memorabilia. I'm going to sell it and give it to the people that I know are doing good work to help the dogs. So that was the start of it. And I came home and told my wife. She went, "I'll help you. Do what you want. I'll help you." So I started it off by I sold a Scott Russell helmet and it said Red Bull Yamaha leathers,
yeah,
which went for good money.
yeah,
And this money, I think people I've noticed, they don't mind paying over the odds a bit because of where it's going. You know what I mean? The money
yeah.
is going to help the people that buy. So we either give them the money if we know them, or if we don't, my wife asks them I ask them for a wish list, and she buys it all online and has it sent to them. Meaning it's food, collars, cages, vaccination stuff, chip readers, whatever they need.
What's the name of the organization?
This one, Riders for Dogs.
Riders for Dogs. Okay, got it. So you said
That's
right. Yeah.
that's on all the social media platforms. But what I didn't expect is I started off selling my stuff, and I was already worried about what was going to happen when that stuff runs out. All my
Mm,
leathers and helmets
sure.
are gone. And I've got helmets from other riders that assigned them to me. It's all going to go. Scott Russell's got one's gone. I've got a Goey one. I've got a Haga one. Anyway. So what I didn't expect is riders approached me after current riders. Remy
Mm,
Gardner first because he's got a dog, loves his dog.
yeah.
Then Joan Mir. Now, Bez, and they're coming
Best
out
talk
going,
about his dog. Yeah.
"Oh, we love what you're doing.
Yeah.
Here's something from me, to sell to."
Oh, cool.
And then I thought, okay, this is really going to work. My wife went, "Oh God, we got to do this properly." So she's done a heap of paperwork to make it official, the association, which is what's holding us up right now.
Okay.
The government department that's handling that is really dragging their feet and doing our head in. We've got the handbrake on, but as soon as we can let that handbrake off, we've got all the paperwork and account. I've got a shitload of stuff, and I'm really excited. We're going to really help make a difference. And what I'm doing is the rider that gives me the product, that all of their money goes to the dog charity places in his country or her country,
Okay. Okay.
So that's what I'm trying to do, So Brad Binder,
You-
South Africa, Jack Miller, Aussie, Oliveira, Portugal, like this, So
Well,
anyway,
you'll be sure to let me know how we can all help with that when you've got things up and running and you can do it more. I'll put some links up here. I love that because
okay.
I'm a bit of I got this beautiful little Alaish knee pad here, right, which I thought was pretty cool from his race.
That's pretty modern, that one.
Yeah, but I'm like it doesn't do anything for anyone else but me. I would rather give it to I'd pay for this with a percentage went to the dogs, So that's.
Mate,
but I heard
this is
on the MotoGP.
this is
podcast.
happening.
Yeah,
It's guys our age
Yeah.
that have collected stuff over the years
Yeah,
that get to this age and think, oh, I'd like to help, and I've got the stuff that I don't need. That, and
For sure.
for example, Mike Watt, he's a Kiwi guy. Olin's, he's been with the Olin's all
Oh
his
yeah, I know the
life.
name. I know the name. Yeah, yeah.
He's with Grassini now, so Mark Marquez and Alex Marquez. So he's worked with so many riders and got so much stuff. He just came to me and said, "Mate, I got divorced a few years ago. All this stuff's in a shed. I'm paying for it to be stored. I'm just going to give it to you to sell for the dogs." And I'm like, "Yeah." So it's really working, and I'm proud. It's gonna take off.
Oh, I'm proud. I'm proud of you as a Kiwi, and I actually have to run to my day job now because I actually have a day job. Yeah, I know, funny, eh? But man, we had such a good chat, and I really hope it was a good use of your time. I feel honored to have met you. I love how humble you are and how real you are, and I think that's definitely something that makes us who we are as Kiwis. And Kirsten, good one there, mate. Clearly, she's keeps
She's
you
on
in.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
She's
and
the academic of the family. Yep.
yeah, we all need that. Same with my wife. My wife's the same. She makes me look good all the time. And man, I would love to stay in touch with you. I know you're super busy. If you were ever in the States and you come, well, I know you come to the States, but if you're ever on the West Coast and you want to ride a really great track, this is like Mary Dobbs, who was in the FIM, American Woman I interviewed. It's her local track. And you want a bike, I'll give you a bike. We'll go riding. We don't have to talk to anyone if you want to keep it low key. I'll take you to the track. We'll hammer it.
Okay. I'm thinking Dodge Hellcat or a Demon or something like that. Something really American.
Oh,
Noisy.
yeah.
Yeah. And with like 800 horsepower or something. And go see something that I've never seen. And I haven't seen much of the States, so I'd love a look around. I go to racetracks and all the time, and that's all I get to see. I'd love to see something else about that beautiful land. That's
Man.
me being honest.
I'll take you for a ride in a big old truck, and we'll be proper Yanks. Or
Perfect.
I'll take you to a gun range and shoot some guns. Yeah, sweet. Hey, Simon, mate, so great. Thank you. And I'm definitely going to stay in touch if you don't mind. And
no problem at all. No worries at all. No
yeah,
problem
man.
at all. No, I hope we haven't bored your listeners too badly.
Oh, well, I don't think you have. And give your wife a hug from me. I feel like I know her already. She's been awesome. And yeah, man, enjoy. Hey, I'll see you at Assen this Friday for P1 practice.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, man.
Bye for now, buddy.
See you, mate. Bye. Thank you.